Planet Lysara shone in the darkness of space like a jewel. Its oceans reflected the three moons, and its towering cities sparkled with lights of every color. Lysara was known across the galaxy as a place of beauty and intelligence. Its people, the Lysarians, were graceful and wise, proud of their culture and traditions. But among them, there was one who had always stood apart, Princess Alara. The blind daughter of the royal family, Alara had never seen the world the way most did. Her large, violet eyes reflected only shadows, and light had no meaning to her. Yet she was far from helpless. She moved with elegance, read complex star maps by touch, and listened to the whispers of the winds and the faint vibrations of the palace floors. Her blindness had made her senses sharper, her mind keener, and her curiosity boundless. Despite her intelligence, whispers followed her everywhere. No one would marry her, the council often muttered. She cannot see. She cannot choose. How can she lead? Even some citizens felt sorry for her, pitying what they believed was a great misfortune. The princess had grown used to these words, but they never touched her spirit. She spent hours in the royal library, learning the history of distant worlds, the art of diplomacy, and the secrets of science. Alara's favorite place was the observation balcony that overlooked the city. Though she could not see the sparkling lights, she could feel the temperature shift as the moons rose and fall, and hear the soft hum of the city below. It was here that she often spoke to herself, imagining the colors and shapes of things she could not see. One morning, a fleet of starships appeared in the skies above Lysara. The royal advisors rushed to the palace. "They are humans," one whispered. Humans were rare in Lysara, almost legendary in their courage and unpredictability. They were not bound by Lysarian tradition and often acted in ways that surprised even the most experienced alien diplomats. From among the human fleet stepped Captain Elias Drake, a tall man with curious eyes and a calm demeanor. Unlike many visitors, he did not wear the formal robes that most dignitaries wore. Instead, he wore a practical uniform, marked with the insignia of his ship, the Aurora. He was here for negotiations, but he had heard of the blind princess and felt a strange curiosity. The royal court prepared an audience for him. As the captain was led through the corridors, he noticed the palace's elegance, the smooth walls that seemed to hum softly, and the subtle scents of Lysara's native flowers. When he reached the throne room, he found Alara seated on a carved dais, her hands resting lightly on the armrests. He bowed politely. "Your Highness, I am Captain Elias Drake of Earth," he said. His voice was clear, confident, yet gentle. "I have heard much about you." Alara tilted her head slightly, sensing him before even hearing his words fully. She had learned to read people by the sound of their voices, by the way their energy moved. "I hope what you have heard is not pity," she replied softly. Elias smiled. "Not at all. I am fascinated by your mind and your courage. That is what I wish to learn about, for the first time in many years." Alara felt a spark of genuine interest rather than pity. She gestured for him to sit. "Then tell me," she said, "what is it that a human captain finds fascinating about a blind alien princess?" Elias chuckled. "It is not about seeing or not seeing. It is about understanding. I have heard that you can perceive things that others cannot, that you notice the smallest vibrations, the faintest changes in the air, the softest sounds, that you can read the stars without looking at them." Alara's lips curved in a small smile. "You speak as if you have studied me." "I have not," Elias admitted, "but I am a student of life itself. I wish to understand how different beings experience the universe. And you, Princess, are among the most intriguing." The conversation flowed naturally. They spoke of planets, of stars, of distant civilizations. Alara asked questions that revealed her keen mind and imagination. Elias listened with genuine interest, sharing stories of human adventures and challenges. Unlike the alien suitors who had avoided her all her life, he did not treat her blindness as a limitation. Rumors began to circulate in the palace. Some council members frowned at the sight of a human speaking privately with the princess. "Is this wise?" One whispered. "A human does not understand our customs. He cannot belong here." Alara ignored the whispers. She had learned long ago that the opinions of others were often small, compared to the truth of experience. She felt an unusual comfort in Elias's presence. Unlike others, he treated her as a person, not a symbol or a pity case. After the audience, Elias requested a tour of the palace gardens. The gardens were vast, filled with rare plants that shimmered under the moonlight. Alara led the way, her fingers brushing the edges of flowers, her steps confident despite the darkness. Elias followed closely, trusting her guidance. "You navigate beautifully," he said, impressed. "I would be lost without your help." "I see in ways you cannot," she replied. "My eyes may not work as yours do, but my mind sees patterns, feels movements, and hears the stories of the world. Sight is only one way to perceive." They spent hours walking, sharing stories of courage and adventure. Alara told him about the stars she had charted, the planet she dreamed of visiting. Elias shared human tales of space exploration, of courage in the face of unknown dangers. Their bond deepened with every word as the night grew late. The first hints of the twin suns rising touched the horizon. Elias paused and spoke gently. "Princess, may I ask something bold?" Alara tilted her head. "I am used to boldness," she said softly. "I would like to know more about you, not as a princess, but as Alara, the person. Will you allow me to visit again?" Alara felt a warmth she had not felt before. "Yes," she replied, "but you must understand, humans do not always follow our rules, and I am not easily impressed." Elias smiled. "Then it is a challenge I will gladly accept." The first part of their unusual friendship had begun. In a world where tradition and prejudice ruled, a human and a blind princess had found common ground. The palace, the city, and even the whispers of the court could not erase the spark of curiosity and courage that now connected them. Little did Alara know that this friendship would soon face tests, far greater than whispers. Forces from within the galaxy, jealous and fearful, would see her difference not as a strength, but as an opportunity to challenge her and her people. And Elias, the human who saw her for who she truly was, would be forced to prove that courage, understanding, and empathy could cross the boundaries of worlds. But for now, under the soft glow of Lystra's moons and the gentle hum of its city, Alara felt something she had never felt before. Hope, not the hope others wished upon her, but her own hope, built on intelligence, bravery, and the bond of friendship. The galaxy outside the palace walls was vast and dangerous, filled with wonders and threats alike. But in this moment, a blind princess and a human captain had found a connection that transcended sight, tradition, and expectation. And in that connection, the first seeds of change for Lysar and perhaps the galaxy itself had been sown. The sun had barely risen over the shimmering towers of Lysara when Princess Alara returned to her private chambers. Her thoughts were alive with the conversation she had shared with Captain Elias Drake. The previous night, it was rare to find someone who spoke to her as if blindness were not a limitation. Most of the Lysarians saw it as a weakness, but Elias saw her mind, her spirit, and her intelligence. That alone was extraordinary. Alara touched the polished walls of her chamber, letting her fingers follow the intricate carvings. They told stories of her ancestors, rulers who had conquered distant planets, explorers who had mapped the stars, and scholars who had unlocked secrets of the universe. She imagined herself among them, not as a blind princess, but as someone who could stand beside them with courage and wisdom. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock. "Enter," she called. The door opened, and her attendant, a young Lysarian named Tyrion, stepped inside. "Your Highness," Tyrion said cautiously, "Captain Drake has requested another meeting. He wishes to explore the palace gardens again." Alara paused. "Again? He visits so often. It is unusual," Tyrion admitted. "Most humans are brief in their interactions. He seems persistent." Alara smiled. "Then let us meet him. I am curious what a human captain sees that others do not." A short time later, Elias arrived, moving carefully through the palace corridors. He had learned to follow the subtle sounds of Lystra's unique architecture, the soft hum of the floors, the distant echoes of water in the fountains, the shifts in temperature near walls and open windows. Alara met him at the entrance of the gardens, extending a hand for guidance. "Good morning, Princess," he said warmly. "I hope I am not intruding." "You are not," Alara replied. "Humans tend to be bold. I find it refreshing." They walked side by side along the garden paths. Alara's hands brushed the petals of alien flowers, her fingers sensing their texture, the gentle vibrations of life within them. Elias followed her lead, careful not to overshadow her natural grace. "You move as if you can see everything," he remarked, watching her navigate with certainty. "I see differently," Alara said. "I do not rely on sight. I rely on intuition, on listening, on feeling. The world is not smaller for me. It is simply different." Elias nodded thoughtfully. "Humans often rely too much on sight. Perhaps that is why we overlook so much." Alara laughed softly, a sound like a musical chime in the quiet garden. "Then perhaps you are learning from me as much as I am from you." Their conversation flowed easily, covering subjects that others would have considered unimportant or complex. They discussed star formations, distant galaxies, and theories of interstellar travel. Alara was particularly intrigued by Elias's stories of human exploration, the courage to travel into the unknown, the willingness to face danger for the sake of knowledge. "I admire humans," she said. "You are unpredictable, yet determined. You seek understanding even when it is difficult. That is rare among the stars." Elias looked at her with genuine interest. "And I admire Lysarians. You are patient, wise, and capable of seeing what others miss. Even without sight, you perceive the universe in ways humans cannot." They continued walking until they reached a quiet pond at the center of the garden. The water was still, reflecting the faint glow of Lysra's moons, though Alara could not see it. She reached out her hand and felt the ripples, sensing the gentle movement. "Do you know," she said softly, "that the surface of water tells many stories? A small ripple can reveal the presence of wind, a shift in the earth, or the touch of a hand?" Elias knelt beside her, fascinated. "I never thought of it that way. You make the world sound alive, full of hidden stories." "That is how it always has been," she said. "I learned early that when you cannot rely on sight, you must listen, feel, and think differently. It is not easier, but it is enlightening." Elias smiled, feeling a growing respect for the princess. Most Lysarians had avoided her all her life, seeing only her blindness. But he saw her mind, her courage, and the unique way she understood her world. As the sun climbed higher, they spoke of more personal matters. Alara shared her loneliness, the isolation she had felt as nobles and suitors avoided her. Elias listened carefully, never pitying her, never judging. He shared his own experiences of isolation on Earth, of the times he had been misunderstood or underestimated. "You are brave," he said finally, "to face a galaxy that does not understand you, to rise above it, to continue learning and exploring. Most beings would give in to despair." Alara felt a warmth she had rarely known. Most words she heard were pity or avoidance. Elias's words were different. They carried understanding and respect. Before leaving, Elias proposed something bold. "Princess, would you allow me to continue visiting? I wish to learn more from you, not as a diplomat, but as a friend." Alara paused. She had spent her life with visitors coming and going, many with false intentions. But there was honesty in Elias's voice. "You may come," she said finally, "but understand, friendship is earned, not given freely." "I accept the challenge," he said, bowing slightly with a playful grin. Word of their growing friendship spread quickly through the palace. Some council members whispered disapproval. "A human is not bound by Lysarian tradition," one said. "This could bring dishonor to the royal family." Others were silently intrigued. "Perhaps he is different," they murmured. "Perhaps he sees what we cannot." Despite the rumors, Alara felt a new sense of freedom. She no longer felt trapped by the expectations of others. With Elias, she could explore ideas, share her thoughts, and be herself. In the following days, their meetings became frequent. They walked the gardens, explored the palace libraries, and discussed ideas for scientific research. Alara began to see that humans, though physically weaker in some ways, had a courage and curiosity that made them remarkable allies. Elias, in turn, learned to appreciate the depth of Lysarian culture and the unique way Alara experienced the world. One evening, as the twin moons rose over Lysara, Elias asked a question that surprised her. "Princess, have you ever wondered why no one in the galaxy would marry you?" Alara's fingers paused on the railing of the balcony. "Yes," she said softly. "It is not my fault, yet it has shaped my life. Most see blindness as weakness. Few see it as strength. That is the truth of the galaxy." Elias nodded. "But you have strength, Princess. I see it, and I believe others will too, when they understand you for the first time." Alara felt that someone truly believed in her, not because of pity or duty, but because of who she was. It was a small seed of hope, but it grew quickly, filling her with determination. The days passed, and their friendship deepened. Alara began to sense a shift in the palace. Nobles who had ignored her now watched with curiosity. Children in the gardens sought her guidance, intrigued by the stories she told and the way she understood the world. The blind princess, once isolated, was beginning to leave a mark on those around her. Yet, in the shadows, there were those who disapproved. Some feared change, some feared a human influence, and some feared Alara's growing confidence. They whispered of dangers, of threats that might come from beyond Lysara, and of a future that could be uncertain if tradition were ignored. Alara and Elias were aware of these tensions, but neither allowed fear to dominate their actions. Instead, they focused on discovery, understanding, and the joy of shared knowledge. Together, they planned small experiments with alien technology, charted new constellations, and explored questions that neither species had attempted to answer before. One night, as they sat in the quiet of the observation balcony, Elias spoke softly. "Princess, the galaxy is vast, filled with wonders and dangers. But I believe that courage and understanding can overcome fear. You are brave enough to face the unknown. I hope, in time, others will see it too." Alara's hands rested lightly on the railing. "I hope so," she said. "But hope alone is not enough. One must act, one must persist, and one must not allow the judgment of others to define one's worth." Elias smiled, inspired by her words. "Then let us act together, Princess. Let us face the galaxy, and perhaps, in doing so, inspire change." The twin moons reflected faintly in the quiet pond below, unseen but felt in the gentle vibration of the palace stones. Alara sensed the promise of adventure, of new friendships, and perhaps even love, though that was a thought she allowed herself only in quiet moments for now. The unexpected meeting between a blind alien princess and a curious human captain had begun to reshape more than just their lives. It had begun to challenge the ideas of a planet, the expectations of a culture, and the boundaries of the galaxy itself. In the weeks to come, they would face political tensions, whispers of opposition, and the true test of courage. But for the moment, under the soft glow of Lysara's moons, Princess Alara felt a rare and precious thing, the excitement of a world opening before her, and the possibility that someone had chosen to see her for who she truly was. The palace of Lysara was usually a place of calm, elegance, and careful order, but in recent weeks, attention had begun to ripple through its corridors, unseen by most but felt by those who listened carefully. Princess Alara, once quietly ignored by the nobles and suitors of her planet, now drew attention wherever she went. The reason was simple: a human, Captain Elias Drake, had chosen to spend time with her, and the palace and the galaxy noticed. The Lysarian Council gathered in a high chamber, its walls carved with ancient stories of kings and queens, explorers, and scholars. The council members were tall, elegant figures with sharp expressions, each representing one of Lysara's powerful noble families. The air was thick with unease. "This human," one counselor said sharply, "he has no respect for Lysarian tradition. He visits the princess, speaks with her freely, and encourages her independence. This is unprecedented and dangerous." Another counselor nodded. "Humans are unpredictable. They do not understand our customs. What if his influence grows? What if our people begin to question our ways? Alara is blind. She should not be allowed to lead in this manner. This friendship or bond, it threatens the stability of our society, The eldest counselor, a wise figure named Lyrian, leaned forward. Perhaps we should not judge too quickly. The human shows respect, courage, and intelligence. He does not mock her, nor does he seek to manipulate her. Perhaps he sees something we have overlooked. Other voices protested. We cannot allow a human to interfere with royal matters. One exclaimed, the princess must follow tradition. We must arrange a proper suitor, one of our own kind, before this. Human influence spreads further. Meanwhile, Princess Alara was unaware of much of the council's debate. She had been spending the day with Elias, walking through the palace gardens once again. They discussed star maps, the physics of Lystra's moons, and even the possibility of joint exploration missions to nearby planets. Elias was fascinated by the depth of her knowledge and her way of understanding the universe. You think too little of yourself, he said, glancing at her as they paused near a fountain. Most beings would consider their limitations as a burden. You have learned to turn them into strength. Alara smiled softly. Perhaps, but strength alone does not protect against the judgments of others. I have learned to care less about what people think, but even I cannot ignore it entirely. Tradition weighs heavily on this planet. Elias placed a hand on the fountain's edge, careful not to disturb her space. Then let us challenge it together, not to fight tradition blindly, but to show that courage, intelligence, and heart matter more than appearances. The bond between them strengthened each day. Citizens began to notice. Some were inspired, seeing Alara as a symbol of wisdom and resilience, a princess who could rise above prejudice. Others whispered, fearful of change and human influence. It was not long before the first overt challenge appeared. One of the counselors, Marion, a proud and influential figure, approached Alara in the private chambers. His voice was sharp. Princess, the time has come for you to choose a proper suitor. A high-ranking Lysarian waits for your decision. It is for the good of your people and the honor of your family. Alara's hands rested lightly on the table. And if I refuse? She asked calmly. Marion's eyes narrowed. Refusal would bring scandal. You must consider your duty. I have considered it, she replied. I refuse. My choice is my own, not a matter to be decided by fear or expectation. The counselor's face twisted in anger. You are blind. You do not understand what you risk. This human friendship, it endangers more than you know. Alara remained steady. And yet, he sees me as I am. Perhaps there is wisdom in that, greater than you can imagine. The confrontation left a ripple through the palace. Some whispered in agreement with the princess, while others plotted quietly to enforce their own will. Meanwhile, Elias sensed the growing tension. He met with Alara in her private chamber, speaking in low tones. Princess, the council is concerned, perhaps even alarmed. Their fear is not personal, they fear change, and they fear what they do not understand. We must be careful, yet remain true to ourselves. Alara nodded. I understand, but fear should not dictate our actions. We must act wisely, yes, but boldly when necessary. Their discussion was interrupted by a subtle alarm of faint vibration that ran through the palace floors. It was not usual for alarms to sound for minor reasons, and both felt a sudden sense of urgency. They are here, Elias said quietly, moving toward the exit. Something is happening. Alara's mind raced. Though blind, her other senses were alive and alert. She felt a slight shift in the air, the faintest hum of machines approaching, and the distant voices of those intent on causing disruption. Her instincts told her this was no ordinary disturbance. Together, they navigated the palace corridors with precision. Alara guided Elias, sensing the vibrations of the floor, the soft drafts through doors, the changes in temperature near hallways. The two moved silently, finding a vantage point near the observation balcony. From there, they could hear the murmurs of intruders moving in the palace grounds. They are attempting something, Alara said softly. Not the humans, others, those who wish to destabilize the royal family. Elias's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. Then we must act. Are you ready? Alara took a deep breath, centering herself. I have been ready my entire life. Blindness does not mean weakness. Let us protect this palace and our people. Using her knowledge of the palace and the subtle movements of the intruders, Alara guided Elias and a small group of loyal palace guards. They moved quietly, positioning themselves to intercept the attackers without alarming the rest of the palace. The intruders were Lysarians themselves, members of a rival faction who resented the princess's independence and feared human influence. They had hoped to frighten her into submission, perhaps even remove her from power entirely. But they had underestimated Alara and the human who stood beside her. With careful coordination, Alara directed the defenders, using her other senses to detect the intruder's location. Elias followed her guidance, moving swiftly and decisively. Together, they confronted the intruders, outmaneuvering them at every turn. The confrontation was brief but decisive. The rival faction, surprised by the princess's skill and the human's bravery, quickly retreated. The palace remained secure, but the message was clear. Alara was no longer a figure to be ignored or underestimated. In the aftermath, the council and the citizens of Lysara began to see a different side of their blind princess. Courage, intelligence, and leadership were qualities that transcended physical limitations. Alara's actions, alongside Elias's support, demonstrated that strength came in many forms. That evening, as they returned to the quiet of the observation balcony, Alara spoke softly. Today, they saw what I already know. Strength is not in sight, but in perception, in courage, and in action. Elias nodded. And they saw it because you allowed yourself to act. You trusted yourself, and you trusted me. That trust makes all the difference. Alara smiled, feeling a quiet pride. For the first time, she sensed that the galaxy might not only tolerate her, but respect her. Not because she was blind, but because she was capable, wise, and brave. I suppose the rumors of the blind princess are no longer enough, she said lightly. People will have to see who I truly am, and they will, Elias replied. Not all at once, but in time. And I will be here to help them see what you already know, for the first time. Alara felt a sense of partnership that went beyond friendship. The bond she shared with Elias was unique, a connection of minds and hearts, forged in understanding, respect, and courage. As the moons rose over Lysara, their soft light reflected in the silent gardens. The princess realized that she was no longer alone. For the first time in her life, she had an ally who saw her not for her blindness, but for the brilliance within. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, both within the palace walls and across the galaxy. The whispers of opposition would continue, the council would debate endlessly, and rival factions would plot. But Alara and Elias had proven that courage, intelligence, and trust could overcome fear. And in that moment, a new chapter in Lysara's history was quietly beginning, a chapter where the blind princess and a human captain could shape the future together. The early morning light fell softly across the palace of Lysara, yet there was no calm. The gardens that had once been places of beauty now bore the tension of whispered alarms. Princess Alara stood at her balcony, sensing every movement round the palace, listening to the distant hum of Lysara's energy grids. Something was wrong. Her instincts, honed through years of perception beyond sight, told her danger was near. Elias. She called, her voice steady but urgent. Captain Elias Drake arrived almost instantly, moving silently through the corridors, guided by her voice and the subtle vibrations of the palace floors. They are here, she said. Not the usual council disputes. Something more dangerous. Elias followed her carefully, trusting her instincts as he had many times before. What do you sense? He asked. Shadows moving in the outer halls, Alara replied. Shifts in air pressure. The palace defenses are being bypassed. The two moved swiftly, navigating the palace with precision. Alara's blindness gave her a unique advantage. She sensed vibrations and changes in temperature that others would have missed. Elias, trained in human tactics, complemented her abilities with speed, strategy, and knowledge of technology. Together, they were a team no intruder could easily overcome. From their vantage point, Alara and Elias observed a small group of masked figures moving with intent toward the royal chambers. They were members of a rival faction, known for their attempts to challenge royal authority and destabilize the government. Their goal was clear: intimidate or remove the princess, and through her, The human influence they feared so much, we must intercept them quietly, Alara whispered. Confrontation will alert the rest of the palace. We need precision, not chaos, Elias nodded. Then we move as one. The two navigated the halls with care, their steps silent but confident. Alara directed them, sensing the intruders' positions by the subtle vibrations they made on the floors, and the soft murmurs they could not completely hide. Elias followed her guidance, positioning guards and preparing non-lethal defenses. When the intruders reached the main corridor, they were met by a coordinated force. Alara's directions, combined with Elias's quick thinking, allowed them to flank the intruders without confrontation. One by one, the intruders were trapped, their movements blocked by barriers and guards strategically placed according to Alara's guidance. You underestimate the blind princess, Elias muttered, watching as the intruders struggled against the barriers. And you certainly underestimate humans who trust her instincts. Alara smiled faintly. Let them learn. The confrontation escalated when the faction leader, a tall and cunning Lysarian named Varian, appeared. He had planned to intimidate Alara personally, expecting her to falter. But he had not anticipated her calm and the human captain by her side. You cannot win, Varian said, his voice echoing through the corridor. You are blind. You have underestimated the power of tradition and fear. Alara stepped forward. Though she could not see him, she sensed his position and intentions. Strength is not in sight, Varian, she said calmly. It is an understanding, perception, and courage. You will learn this today. With Elias's help, she guided the guards to block Varian's escape routes. Using subtle distractions and non-lethal force, they cornered him. The remaining intruders surrendered quickly, realizing their plan had failed. The palace was safe once more. The council and citizens who had gathered witnessed the unusual spectacle. For the first time, many saw the blind princess not as a figure of pity, but as a capable, brave leader. Elias stood beside her, a human whose courage had matched hers, proving that intelligence and heart could cross species and worlds. The council, which had previously doubted her abilities, was forced to reconsider. Lyrian, the eldest counselor, spoke aloud for all to hear. Princess Alara has acted with wisdom and courage beyond measure, and the human who stands beside her has shown loyalty and bravery. We have been wrong to doubt them. Whispers of admiration spread quickly. Citizens, nobles, and even skeptical council members now saw Alara in a new light. She had proven herself not through sight, but through intellect, perception, and leadership. The princess who had been isolated and shunned was now celebrated. Later that evening, Alara and Elias returned to the observation balcony. The soft hum of the city below felt different now, as if the palace itself acknowledged her triumph. You were incredible today, Elias said, leaning slightly on the railing beside her. I have never seen anyone move and command like that without sight. You turned what others saw as weakness into unmatched strength. Alara's hands rested lightly on the railing. It was not just me. You helped. Your courage, your trust, it mattered as much as my perception. Today, we acted as equals. Elias smiled. That is what makes a true partnership. Not sight, status, or tradition, but trust, understanding, and shared courage. Alara nodded. I feel recognized, not just by you or the council or the citizens, but by myself. For the first time, I'm certain that I am capable of more than they ever imagined. The days following the incident were filled with recognition and cautious admiration. The council officially acknowledged Alara's capabilities, praising her wisdom in guiding the palace defense. Citizens spoke openly of the princess's bravery, and tales of the blind leader who had defended her home with intelligence and courage. Spread across the planet, Elias continued to visit, often joining her in the palace library or the gardens. Their discussions now included not only exploration and science, but also the future of Lysara itself. Plans were made for joint projects with humans, sharing knowledge and ideas that could benefit both species. Alara's mind, once limited to the confines of the palace, now reached out to the galaxy. Inspired by curiosity and courage. Yet, despite the praise, Alara remained humble. Recognition is fleeting, she said one evening, her hands brushing the edges of a star map. True accomplishment is measured by action, not applause. Today we succeeded, but tomorrow brings new challenges, Elias nodded. And we will face them together. You have proven that strength is not measured by sight or tradition, but by courage, intelligence, and heart. The human's words resonated deeply with her. For years, she had felt constrained by the expectations of others, defined by limitations she did not accept. Now, standing beside someone who truly saw her, she realized that she could reshape not only her destiny, but that of her people. The city of Lysara, once hesitant and judgmental, now looked to her as a symbol of hope and change. Children asked questions she never thought to be asked. Young Lysarians sought her guidance in learning, in exploration, and in understanding. Alara found joy in teaching them, sharing not only knowledge, but also the example of courage, humility, and empathy. Even the rival factions were cautious now, their previous plots foiled and their reputations diminished. The combination of Alara's insight and Elias's bravery had created a force the galaxy could not ignore. Their partnership, human and Lysarian, was proof that cooperation, understanding, and mutual respect could overcome fear, tradition, and prejudice. One evening, as the twin moons rose and the city below glimmered softly, Elias asked a question that had been growing in his heart. Princess Alara, do you think the galaxy will ever accept what we represent? A blind princess, guided by perception and intelligence, and a human who stands beside her. Alara's fingers rested on the balcony railing, sensing the subtle hum of the city. Perhaps not all at once, she said. Change is slow, but today we have shown what is possible. And that is the first step. Elias reached out, lightly touching her hand. Then we take the next step together. Wherever the galaxy leads, I will stand with you. Alara felt a rare warmth, a quiet certainty that she had not experienced before. Trust, courage, and respect had brought them together. And now they faced the future not as isolated beings, but as partners. The palace of Lysara, once quiet and measured, now buzzed with new possibilities. Citizens celebrated the bravery of their princess. The council debated not only tradition, but also innovation and cooperation. And in the midst of it all, a human captain had earned a place not by strength of arms alone, but by seeing the value in what others had overlooked. For Princess Alara, the events of the past days had proven one truth: courage, intelligence, and heart could overcome fear and prejudice. And that recognition was not given, it was earned. And in that recognition, she found not just pride, but freedom, the freedom to shape her own destiny. In the destiny of Lysara itself. As the moons reflected faintly over the quiet garden ponds, Alara knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges, wonders, and dangers. But with Elias by her side, she felt ready for anything. Together, they would inspire change, not by force, but by the simple power of seeing, understanding, and acting with courage. The story of the blind princess and the human captain had begun to spread beyond Lysara, whispered in distant starports and on distant planets. And though the challenges ahead were uncertain, one thing was clear: the galaxy would never look at her or at humans the same way again. The palace of Lysara gleamed under the soft light of the twin moons, but the air was alive with anticipation. Citizens and nobles alike had gathered to witness a historic event, though none could fully predict its meaning. Princess Alara stood on the balcony of the royal chamber, her hands resting lightly on the railing, feeling the vibrations of the city below. She had faced danger, prejudice, and doubt, yet she remained calm and confident. Today was different. Today, the world would see not a blind princess, but a leader who had earned respect through courage, intelligence, and heart. Elias Drake stood beside her, tall and steady, his presence a source of quiet strength. The human captain had been by her side through every trial, every challenge, and every moment of doubt. In return, Alara had trusted him, guided him, and shared her world in ways no one else had. Together, they had proven that understanding and courage could bridge worlds, species, and cultures. The council gathered in the grand hall, their expressions a mixture of respect and awe. Lyrian, the the eldest counselor, stepped forward, his voice clear and commanding. "Citizens of Lysara," he began, "we have witnessed acts of bravery and wisdom that surpass our traditions and expectations. Princess Alara has demonstrated leadership, intelligence, and courage beyond measure, and the human who stands beside her has proven loyalty, understanding, and bravery. Today, we recognize their union not as a break from tradition, but as the beginning of a new era." A murmur of surprise ran through the crowd. Some nobles whispered doubts, yet many citizens clapped quietly, their respect for Alara growing by the moment. The council had made a decision that few had imagined possible. They would honor the choice of the princess, granting her the unprecedented right to choose her own partner. Alara turned to Elias, her expression calm yet radiant. "You know, humans are often brave," she said softly, "but I never expected one to see me as I am, without pity or fear. You have proven that courage and understanding are more valuable than sight or status." Elias smiled. "And you, princess, have shown me that perception, intelligence, and heart can change the world. I am proud to stand beside you." The ceremony was simple yet meaningful. Citizens from across Lysara filled the grand hall, their attention focused on the princess and the human, who had captured the respect of an entire planet. Alara's hands rested gently in Elias's, and he looked at her not as a blind princess, but as a remarkable being whose mind, spirit, and courage had earned his admiration and love. When the council officially recognized their union, the hall erupted in applause. Some of the skeptics remained silent, still bound by doubt, but even they could not deny the truth. Alara's leadership had been tested and proven. Elias's loyalty had been undeniable. Together, they had demonstrated that courage, understanding, and partnership could overcome fear, prejudice, and tradition. After the formalities, Alara and Elias walked through the palace gardens. The twin moons reflected faintly in the ponds, and the soft hum of the city carried a sense of peace and possibility. The people of Lysara, once hesitant and judgmental, now looked to their princess with admiration. Children followed her steps, eager to learn from someone who had turned perceived weakness into unmatched strength. "We have changed something today," Elias said quietly, watching the soft ripples in a pond. "Not just tradition, but the way people see strength, courage, and leadership. You've shown them a new path," Alara nodded, "and you helped me show it. Strength is not a solitary thing. It grows when we act together, when we trust one another, when we turn fear into action." Their bond, already strong, deepened further in that quiet moment. Elias had not sought recognition, rank, or power. He had sought understanding, and in doing so, he had become part of something greater than himself. Alara had not only found an ally, but a partner who respected her mind, her courage, and her heart. In the following days, Lysara itself began to transform. Citizens, inspired by the actions of their princess and the human who stood beside her, started to question old prejudices. Schools taught the value of perception and courage. Young Lysarians learned that leadership was earned, not dictated by appearance or tradition. Across the city, whispers of change became confident discussions, and the planet began to look toward a future full of possibility. The rival factions, once plotting in the shadows, were forced to reconsider their strategies. They had underestimated the power of intelligence, courage, and trust. Those who sought to destabilize the palace learned that fear could not outweigh loyalty and respect, and that unity between different beings, different species, and different ways of seeing the world was stronger than any plot. One evening, Alara and Elias stood at the highest balcony of the palace, overlooking the city. The twin moons cast a gentle glow, and the soft hum of the energy grids below made the city feel alive. Alara spoke first, her voice thoughtful. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "if the galaxy will ever fully understand us? That a blind princess and a human captain could lead together, side by side?" Elias took her hand, holding it gently. "Perhaps not all at once," he said, "but they will understand eventually. And those who truly see, those who value courage, intelligence, and heart, will follow our example. You have already changed your world, Alara, And I believe we can inspire change beyond Lysara. She smiled, feeling a quiet certainty she had never known. Then we continue, she said. Not for recognition, not for tradition, but for what is right and what is possible. The galaxy is vast, and there is much to explore, to learn, and to protect. Elias nodded. Together, the following weeks were filled with celebrations, plans, and preparations. Citizens celebrated the first union of its kind, a human and a Lysarian princess. Gifts arrived from distant planets, curious and respectful, acknowledging that Lysara had embraced courage and understanding over fear and prejudice. The story of the blind princess and her human companion spread across the galaxy, inspiring others to see beyond appearances and to value intelligence, loyalty, and heart, even as life returned to a new rhythm. Challenges remained. Diplomats from other worlds sought alliances, explorers proposed new missions. And the shadow of uncertainty in the galaxy reminded them that peace was never guaranteed. But Alara and Elias faced these challenges as they had faced every trial before together, with trust, courage, and understanding. One quiet evening, as they returned to the observation balcony after a day of planning, Alara reflected on how far they had come. She had once been isolated, judged for her blindness, and dismissed by those who valued tradition over insight. Now, she stood as a symbol of change, her courage and intelligence recognized across her planet and beyond. Elias looked at her, his voice soft but sincere. You have inspired more than just Lysara. You have shown the galaxy that limitations are not weaknesses, that courage is not defined by appearance, and that partnership can create true strength. Alara reached for his hand, feeling the warmth of his presence. And you have inspired me. You saw me as I am, without fear or pity. Together, we have proven that understanding and courage can overcome anything, even prejudice, even tradition, even fear itself. The twin moons rose higher, casting a gentle glow over the palace and the city below. In that light, Princess Alara realized that her life had changed forever, not because of what she lacked, but because of what she and Elias had built together. Respect, courage, partnership, and understanding were stronger than any challenge the galaxy could offer. The citizens of Lysara, the council, and even those who had doubted her now saw the truth. Leadership and strength were not defined by sight or species, but by intelligence, courage, and heart. And the human who had chosen to stand beside her had proven that humanity itself could inspire change across the stars. As they stood together, hand in hand, Alara and Elias looked toward the horizon. Beyond the twin moons, the galaxy waited, vast, unpredictable, and full of possibility. Together, they were ready to face it all. For Princess Alara, once overlooked and underestimated, the future was no longer a matter of doubt or fear. She had earned her place, not through sight or privilege, but through courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act. Elias, the human captain, had chosen to stand with her not as a conqueror, but as a partner, equal in respect and understanding. And as Lysara celebrated this union, the first of its kind, the galaxy began to change. One planet at a time, beings learned to see beyond appearances, to value courage and intelligence, and to embrace the possibility that understanding and trust could unite even the most unlikely of allies. Princess Alara, once blind, now stood as a beacon of hope. Elias, the human who saw her for who she truly was, stood beside her as proof that heroism and humanity could cross worlds. Together, they had not only defended a palace and inspired a planet, they had sparked the beginning of a new era. The moons of Lysara reflected in the quiet waters of the gardens, and the city hummed with a new promise. The blind princess and the human captain had changed the galaxy, not through conquest or force, but through courage, understanding, and the simple power of seeing with the heart. And in that moment, the galaxy knew something it had never known before. Strength and heroism are not defined by sight, species, or tradition. They are defined by courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act for what is right.